The countdown is on. Voters are heading to the polls in a matter of days.
But the candidates have been working to get your approval for months.
We have what you need to know as you decide 2014. As part of our dedication to bringing you balanced coverage, we are devoting time tonight to make sure that you have the information you need before you go to the polls.
Yes, throughout the next half hour, we will cover the big races and issues. To help, I'll be leading a panel discussion to delve deeper into the races. Fox 11's political reporter Andrew LaCombe will also be joining us. And as we go along, we will point out helpful sections on our website, fox11online.com. We have a special You Decide page to go along with our coverage tonight. Just look for the tab on the top of the home page.
And we begin tonight with the top race on the ballot, the race for governor. Democrat Mary Burke is looking to unseat incumbent Republican Governor Scott Walker. For months now, the polls from Marquette University Law School have showed that this race is a statistical tie. The issue of job creation has been at the forefront of both candidates' campaigns, and Andrew LaCombe joins us now. And Andrew, what are the two sides proposing?
Michelle, the governor is focusing on worker training. He says the state's economy will expand if people get more specific education. Burke says she'll bring experience from Trek Bicycle, a company her dad started in southern Wisconsin, and she'll help the state grow through new businesses. Tonight, we have balanced coverage. Governor Walker says Wisconsin has a work problem, not a jobs problem. He points to a state website that lists more than 77,000 open positions.
But it's not just about the jobs added, it's about the fact that there are many more jobs to fill. We just need to help people get the skills and the education they need to succeed in those positions.
Mary Burke says even though there are jobs available, Wisconsin's economy can do better. The most recent numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show Wisconsin ranks 33rd in the U.S. in job creation.
If our economy isn't growing, we're losing out on the type of tax base that we can invest in education and infrastructure and reduce taxes at the same time.
So what will each candidate do in the next 4 years if elected? Burke says her goal is to make Wisconsin a top 10 economy in the country. She believes the state should invest in entire industries over individual companies. She also plans to quadruple a state fund for startup businesses.
Certainly should work at bringing new employers to Wisconsin, but we also have to make sure that we're creating new companies, helping to start new companies.
In a possible second term, Governor Walker says his goals include cutting taxes for the manufacturing and agriculture industries. Walker also says he will spend more on worker training programs. He also plans to require drug testing for some adults who request food stamps from the state.
Increasingly, from a liability standpoint, employers need people who are drug-free.
Throughout the campaign, Burke put some attention on a promise Walker made 4 years ago that was creating 250,000 private sector jobs by the end of his first term. So far, the state has added around 100,000 jobs. Walker says he doesn't think voters will penalize him for setting a big goal. Michelle?
All right, Andrew, thanks. And another area where the two sides seem to have some differences is in education.
Yeah, that's right. The governor says if he's reelected, he'd push the legislature to freeze tuition at UW schools for 2 more years. The tuition freeze is Walker's main focus for higher education. Burke, who's a member of the Madison School Board, says unless the UW system gets more state funding, it can't survive another 2-year tuition freeze. But she says her goal is to lower college costs, and she wants to lower student debt by making student loan payments tax deductible. Walker says keeping tuition down and creating more high-paying jobs are the best ways to lower debt. We'll hear more from Walker and Burke a little later on tonight about the other lawmakers they could be working with in Madison next year. Michelle?
All right, Andrew, thanks. Now, typically, undecided voters are coveted during the campaigns, but so far, pre-election polls are showing there aren't very many undecided voters left when it comes to the governor's race. Mark Leland is with our panel right now. And Mark, who do you have with you, and What do they expect the impact of the undecided voter to be?
Well, let's find out. Representing the Democratic view tonight, we're joined by Deb Stover with the Democratic Party, Brown County Democratic Party here, and representing the Republican Party of Brown County is the chairman, Mark Becker. Give us an idea. 6 to 10%, they say, are undecided still at this point in the governor's race. Can those 6 to 10% still be swayed in your favor?
Oh, well, they most certainly can. I have trouble believing it's that much, to tell you the
Really?
truth. But I can say I was out knocking doors today, handing out literature, and talking to people. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to work the next week. It's just one more week. And we're going to get out the vote, and we're going to talk to voters, and we're going to press the case for Mary Burke.
And Mark, for Governor Walker, what do you do to try and win over those last few remaining undecideds?
Well, Jay, you know, I think it's the big thing is just saying where we are now as opposed to 4 years ago. Look at, you know, we are creating jobs, the deficit's down, we are in a better shape fiscally than we were 4 years ago. It's working, and that's kind of the message that we've said all along. Look at where we are now, and I think that's resonating with the voters. I agree with Deb. I don't know if it's 6 to 10%. It's few and far between, but I think they can be, you know, coming our way.
Well, if it comes down to these final few, I mean, the key is really to get them to the polls, is it not? I mean, that's what you need, those undecideds to really make the effort.
Right, this is really true, and we have been pushing early voting, and people can still early vote here through Friday. I myself do that. I think it's wonderful. It's great. You don't have to stand in lines, and you can do it to accommodate your schedule. Definitely, we want people to be paying attention and to vote. Governor Walker has failed in his promise to create 250,000 jobs. He says it was a big goal. It wasn't. It was a moderate return from a recession. And he is less than half on that, and that's the most important thing.
Mark, let you have the final say here in this
Well, you know, yes, job creation is huge, and he's done a great job in terms of job creation. Look at where we were under Doyle, losing 133,000 jobs. So we had we had to stop the bleeding, and then we had to continue and start the growth. So 120,000 jobs, is that where we would like to be? Well, no,
Okay.
But we're on the way.
All right. Well, if you still are an undecided voter out there, we can help on our website, fox11online.com. We have the candidate profiles for you, side-by-side comparisons and the latest election news. Just click on the You Decide tab on the top of the homepage. And for more information on the campaigns and volunteer opportunities with the political parties here in Brown County, you can find a link attached to the panel discussion story.
All right, Mark, thanks. Our special You Decide coverage continues next. Voters will be helping decide who represents Northeast Wisconsin in Washington. That includes replacing a man who has held the seat for 35 years.
For 35 years, the same person has represented Wisconsin's 6th congressional district.
It's been a great honor.
But Republican Tom Petri announced earlier this year that he was not seeking re-election.
Sooner or later, you either are booted out, die, or retire. And I figure 35 years is a pretty good start. And no time is perfect, but this was a pretty good time.
And that announcement leaves the seat wide open.
And the candidates looking to fill the role are already public figures. They are Republican State Senator Glenn Grothman and Democrat Winnebago County Executive Mark Harris. Looking at the map here, the 6th district covers a large area, but it's the ground they would have to cover in Washington that may make for a challenge. Polls show public approval for Congress is at a record low. So what will these candidates do differently? Andrew Lacombe is back and has more.
Republican Glenn Grothman describes his political background as strongly pro-business. He says that would be a focus in Congress.
We've got to improve the business climate by helping businesses with regulation that sometimes you don't have in other countries, helping get our tax climate in line with other countries.
Mark Harris says he'd bring solid financial management to Washington. The Democrat is working on his 10th budget for Winnebago County.
So I do have experience with budgets. I have experience with making the tough choices. Now at the federal level, we have a large gap between what we're taxing and what we're spending.
Both candidates say the federal government spending needs to be better controlled. They also agree Congress has to win back support from the public. We asked the candidates why they're the right choice.
You have to accept that the ideal is not the enemy of the good. So sometimes you have to be satisfied with something that's good, even if it's not exactly what you wanted.
When I was in Madison, I never had a problem dealing with Democrats. I never had a problem breaking party lines. So I'd like to believe somebody who is going to lead to an increased amount of bipartisanship.
The man Harris and Grothman are vying to replace Congressman Petri, says he won't endorse Grothman in this election. Grothman brushed off the news. Harris said he wasn't surprised. Michelle?
Andrew, as we said before, the 6th district covers quite a large area in the state. Did the candidates talk about how they've reached out to the voters? Yeah, that's definitely a question I asked. Both Harris and Grothman told me they've done a lot of traveling through the campaign. They've attended parades, fairs, spoken to a lot of community groups. They're each pretty well known in the areas they represent through their current positions, but they said they did a lot of work to get more name recognition in the rest of the district. Now we'll move to Northeast Wisconsin's other seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. It's held by Republican Reed Ribble, who was first elected 4 years ago in 2010. He's facing Democrat Ron Gritt. Gritt is currently a member of the City Council in Chilton and a professor at Marian University. Looking at the map, the 8th District covers parts of 11 counties in Northeast Wisconsin, basically from the Appleton area north. One issue that Ribble or Gritt could face next year is the federal minimum wage. President Obama has called on Congress to raise it by nearly $3 to $10.10 an hour. Gritt says a higher minimum wage would reduce costs for government assistance programs, but Ribble says he doesn't think the federal government should set a minimum wage. Tonight, we hear from both sides.
Having a wage that's one size fits all, which is the typical way that the left has taken this, doesn't really work. And so it needs to be localized to the degree that it can be localized, at least at the state level.
Absolutely. I am for the 10-10 minimum wage. It's not a living wage, but at least it gets people closer to a living wage.
The federal government has set a minimum wage since 1938. The last 5 years, it has been $7.25 an hour. Wisconsin's minimum wage is the same. You can hear more from Ribble and Gritt on fox11online.com. We have more from their interviews posted in our You Decide section. Michelle?
All right, Andrew. Thanks. The impact on lawmakers will not just be in Washington, but also right here in Northeast Wisconsin. Coming up next, what's at stake for the state legislature on November 4th?
It's how the makeup of the state legislature impacts the governor's office.
This election will also have an impact on the state legislature. In fact, there could be a shift in the balance of power in Wisconsin. For the last 2 years, Republicans controlled both the Senate and the Assembly. Andrew is back now with the facts.
Michelle, in the Senate, that lead was narrowed during the last session, 17-16. 17 of the seats are up for grabs. 6 incumbents are running, along with 4 Democrats. 2 of those Democrats are unopposed, and 7 races feature no incumbents. Over in the Assembly, Republicans had a 60-38 advantage with 1 independent. All 99 seats are up for election. 28 Republicans and 19 Democrats are running unopposed. 22 Republican incumbents are running, along with 16 Democrats. 14 races have no incumbents. So where are these races in our area? In the Senate, the 3 districts on this map are up for grabs. They're in the Green Bay, Fox Valley, and Southern Lakeshore areas. The winners will serve a 4-year term. There are 12 assembly races scattered across our viewing area. We've shaded those districts in on this map. The winners there will serve 2-year terms. You can find a list of all these candidates by going to fox11online.com and clicking on the More Races button. Michelle?
All right, Andrew, thanks. We asked Governor Walker and Mary Burke about the importance of party control in the legislature. Now, both candidates obviously hope their own parties get a boost, but they say they will work with whichever lawmakers are elected.
Less than 3% of the bills I signed into law were just Republican-only bills. The things I'm talking about, workforce development, education reform, tax reform, those are all things Republicans and Democrats alike can support.
Well, I'm going to find common ground with the legislature, and on day one, I'm going to sit down with leaders in the Republican legislature and ask You know, how do we create that similar vision? How do we find that common ground?
Common ground. Well, Mark joins us with our political panel once again to weigh in on the question of common ground.
Yes, every election we hear candidates say they're going to work with the opposing party, but I've covered enough elections to know that that's easier said than done. Deb, give us an idea. The last few years, have both parties been really working together?
Well, we've been very polarized, honestly, and the Republicans have been in charge of the entire government during this time.
Because you heard Governor Walker say the bills he signed were Democrats supported too.
Well, I think he's probably pushing that a little bit. He's one of the most polarizing political figures in the country, and at this point we need to get some balance back. And we need to get a governor in who is somebody that can reconcile people and isn't so polarizing. So that's why folks need to support Mary Burke.
Can both sides work together if there is a change in power in the legislature?
Well, without a doubt, I think that Governor Walker has done a decent job working with the other side as well. Like he said, less than 3% of the laws that he has signed were Republican only. It's just the 3% sometimes gets all the media coverage as well. But yes, there's no doubt about it that we can work together.
Okay. Looking at the races coming up, the Assembly seems like the Republicans maybe have a stronghold there, but the Democrats really have a chance. If they're going to take over one of the houses, it's going to be the Senate. In
the Senate, that's right. We have some very strong candidates. We have Penny Bernard-Shaver running down in the Appleton area, and then we have Dean DeBrew running up here in the 1st. And he's been running a vigorous campaign, raised a lot of money, has a huge core of volunteers, and I think people are going to be surprised at how well he does.
We saw it's pretty evenly split right now. I mean, just one candidate away. So, I mean, 2 wins could easily get you in the power.
It could, and we have also Martha Lanning down in the Manitowoc area who's running a great campaign. So it's going to be an interesting election night.
What do you think, Mark? How's the power going to shape up?
Well, I think it stays with the Republicans. You know, like you said, we have a good, strong team of folks. Frank Lasay is running, Roger Roth. Those are household names, and they're working like dogs out there. And
but what about those contested races like Mike Ellis's seat, Republican with Penny Bernard-Shaver, really putting up a lot of ads there?
Yeah, well, yeah, they are spending a whole lot of money, and so are we. But you know, Roger Roth, people know who he is. He's been a representative in that area and ran the congressional campaign.
Okay.
So I think that stays with him.
They know Penny too.
We'll continue to follow it, Michelle.
All right, Mark, thanks. It will be interesting. Voters will also help shape how the state handles legal challenges. Most recently, those issues have included things like voter ID and same-sex marriage. We'll take a look at the candidates for Attorney General coming up next. When you head to the polls on November 4th, you will not need your ID. The state's voter ID law has only been in effect in one election since it was passed 3 years ago, and that was this one. Take a look. The video here is from a spring primary in February of 2012. The U.S. Supreme Court blocked the Wisconsin from enforcing the law. Outgoing Wisconsin Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen said he would try to find an alternate to ease the court's concerns. However, he later changed his mind, and that means that the voter ID legal battle will likely fall on the desk of Van Hollen's successor. Here are the candidates looking to fill that role. They are Waukesha County District Attorney Republican Brad Schimmel and Jefferson County DA Democrat Susan Happ. Now, Fox 11 asked both candidates if they would defend the voter ID law if it went before the U.S. Supreme Court. And tonight, we have both sides.
You've got to have, you know, the independence to look at a law and the wherewithal and the courage to say, look, if a law is blatantly unconstitutional, that I'm not going to utilize taxpayer resources to defend a law that I know is unconstitutional.
We don't know yet whether they're going to take the case up substantively. If they do, yes, as the state's Attorney General, it will be my job to defend that law. I'll take an oath to defend Wisconsin.
Voter ID is not the only issue the state's top attorney will be dealing with. To take a look at where the candidates stand on some of the most important legal issues facing Wisconsin, head to our website, fox11online.com, and then click on the You Decide tab on the top of our homepage. And while you're online, you can also check out the referendum questions that are going to be on some people's ballots.
That's right. And if you are heading out to the polls, here is what you need to know.
Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. Polls are open from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. Fox 11 is not your only source for pre-election coverage. We'll also have you covered when the results start coming in. That includes both here and online. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Be sure to vote. Have a good night.